Hi, this is Amanda.
And this is Jen.
And you're listening to Just This, a podcast that explores everything around being and becoming a mother or parent.
We're excited to have you join us as we dive into the practical details as well as the unseen energetics on topics that span from preconception to years after birth.
So today we're talking about belly binding, and Jen was just talking about how much she loves it. And
I do.
We've mentioned this in many other podcast episodes, so this one has been meaning to come out for a while. So here we are.
Here we are finally.
Because you guys, if anybody's out there like, what the hell is belly binding? And if you have had that thought, you probably already researched it. So you might have some insight as to what it is, but maybe you're listening to this afresh and have never heard of it. And so go ahead, Jen. Let's start with, what is belly binding?
So belly binding is bind your belly essentially. And there's different types of, depending on the cultural background, different types of fabrics that they use. Essentially, we know it most likely for like the postpartum period, but it can actually be used any time of your life, which is kind of nice. The part I love most about belly binding postpartum, did you ever get it done postpartum? Let me just ask you real quick.
I didn't get it done, but I did it and had my family, my partner and my family help me because I did use a traditional, very long one. And so basically they had to hold it while I would spin and then we'd twist the fabric and I'd spin and we'd twist the fabric. So it is, you probably have more insight as to, because when I try to do it with clients, a lot of times I find that they get overwhelmed with just how to take that big piece of fabric, and having somebody do it to you who knows how to do it is different than trying to do it yourself.
Yeah. So, and actually having someone stand up and spin and twist, there's another method that you can actually, as a belly binding practitioner, that you can actually have them lay on the bed. So even post C-section, it can be done where it's harder to sit up.
You'll have to mentor me through this. I'll have to learn this from you.
Yeah. I'll see you soon. We'll do it in person so you can learn how to do it laying down without standing up. I think the really main function, especially because belly binding is a very more traditional type cultures, is that it really is meant to like help also warm the womb. And it's very important after birth that you keep that area nice and warm because you don't want to create any issues. I call belly binding like a hug. Like it gives you like a gentle hug after postpartum, because what happens is as baby grows, your abdominal muscles start to kind of expand. You have relaxin flowing through your body. Everything's kind of looser, and baby grew in your womb. So your abdominal muscles kind of loosened up. And postpartum, it's not like it's just going to click back, right? We're not machines. It doesn't just hop back in. So it takes time to really kind of come together. And the other thing about belly binding is that because of the baby and the size as it grows to term, it can also push organs and things like that out of the way to create space for baby. There's a really cool picture of how baby fit, how all the organs kind of get placed in the body. And I will try to find that to post it on the show notes because it's amazing. Besides all that, it's just meant to kind of hold you in. They also believe it'll improve digestion, help with diastasis rectis, that whole hugging. So it's like also emotional, energetic, it makes you feel better and secure. They also say it can really help with the fascia and the ligaments around the hips and in the pelvic floor there. If you have any cramping or things like that, that also holds it in. Even when we have period cramps, if you notice sometimes placing something like heavy or some pressure on that, it feels like it relieves it a little bit too. And so that's kind of like the benefits of belly binding. So I want to ask you, what did you kind of feel when you did your belly binding? Did you feel any benefits?
I think I stumbled across it again when I was very diving into the holistic health postpartum and the things you can do naturally to help your body. You know, you're supposed to be resting. And in resting, the interesting thing to me is some of the stuff I read about belly binding. First of all, it's just used in all these other cultures and there's all these benefits that you listed, but it's almost like when you have a cast, I felt like in some senses, you're not actively doing anything, but your body is healing and it's holding it in this place for your body to heal, holding the organs and supporting the organs and kind of gently, it's a gentle guide where things should be or how things should be regenerating and kind of reprocessing. Yes, your body can do it on its own naturally. Yes, your body can heal caring naturally, but there's things we can do. For example, this may or may not release yet. We talked about Yoni steaming. It's shown that when you do Yoni steaming and you have tearing, that the healing is going to be exponentially faster. And I do feel that there's similar thing with belly binding and just the way your organs kind of move back into place and your body just heals itself. It's like when you have that gentle cast, I don't like to use the word cast, but that gentle shaping, the container, that gentle container, then it helps guide in a very gentle way. And for me, what I was very concerned with, I don't know why it really freaked me out because this is very normal and it's going to be fine, is the diastasis recti. Yeah. And I could feel the separation. So that was one of the reasons I dove into the belly binding pretty early on. And then I even would incorporate later on, after 6 weeks, doing the belly binding and then slow Pilates like exercises on the floor at the same time. So it's almost like you're having that container to hold this space and hold things in the proper place. And then you're doing small movements to strengthen at the same time while it's in that holding space. Overall, though, I loved it. It felt so good. We talked about this again in the postpartum body image episode, which we'll link. It's a very strange feeling to have after you give birth. Is all this skin and space. It's just empty space. It's just such a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Because where this baby was, it's just gone. And it's not like your body's like, whoop, back. Right? It doesn't happen that way.
No.
Having the belly binding was very beneficial psychologically, I think emotionally, as well as physically too.
Yeah, I felt that way too. And that's why I say it's kind of like a nice hug from like a friend.
It's almost impossible, I feel. I don't know if you know of a way to when you're doing the traditional belly binding, it's almost impossible to do it by yourself. Yeah. But when you have someone working on and helping you do it, you feel more taken care of too. There's an element of connection and this really beautiful sense of this person being a part of your healing process and just being there with you. And I think that was just as nice. It's like a nice way to connect with somebody in this really tender phase of your life too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. To do a more traditional style, you do need somebody to help you.
Bagwang? Is it called bagwang?
That's one of them. And they use a very specific type tying method. And the one I learned is a little bit softer. They use a wrap. I personally did one. I went and bought really bad with the yardage, but like the 100 yards of fabric and specifically linen to tie it. This one I use on people is essentially kind of like a disposable ace bandage, but it's longer. So it's actually about 12 inches and then you wrap it around them. The thing about that one is it is a lot softer and it doesn't hold you as tightly as some of the ones that are pre-made where you slowly can tighten it to the
I did
the
bagwang. So you start with like a long tail, the fabric, and we'll put some videos in the show notes. And then you have the short tail, and the short tail kind of wrap around you twice. And then you start doing these knots. And so it's wrap and then twist and then wrap the other way and then twist and then wrap the other way. You're making these it's really beautiful too. It's almost like shibari.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's part of shibari.
I like it. No, those ones are really beautiful. And that is another way of doing it too. And this one this one's a lot more gentler, which is kind of nice, especially immediately postpartum, because with these ones, you can do it within like a few hours postpartum. We probably would wait at least 4 to 6 hours and make sure like bleeding's under control and the uterus is tightening and everything like that before I'd put one on. But yeah, you could put on pretty immediately after. And I don't know about the ones that you're talking about the time frame for those, because I think you have to wait a little bit longer postpartum.
I did. I started those in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So this particular method you could start pretty immediately postpartum.
Yeah, and I do want to bring this up too. We live in a modern world. It's great if you can do some of these traditional ones, and we do have
the belts.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of like an elastic belly belt that you can use. And oftentimes if you've been given a C-section or had to experience a C-section, they'll give those to you in the hospital, to be honest. And it's modern day belly binding.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do anything fancy. If you don't want to do some traditional form of belly binding, I always recommend to every postpartum client that they get some kind of bare minimum elastic belt. That'll do the same thing. And just wearing that when you can during the day really does make, I feel like, a difference. And again, and not just physical, I really see the emotional, psychological difference in people when they wear these things. So you don't need to get fancy if you want to get one of those. That's totally going to give you much of the same benefits.
Yeah, I agree. Just on a note of that, as the kind of a precaution thing, is to just make sure that you're not doing it too tight, especially the closer you are postpartum. You want it so that you can comfortably breathe.
Yes,
and it's
breathe.
like breathing is so important. So just make sure you feel like you can breathe comfortable. You shouldn't be feeling like you're wearing your skinny jeans out for the day. You want to enjoy yourself. And one thing I noticed personally when I did it was my midwife at the time didn't really want me to be wearing it 24/7. Person I study from was like, culturally they wear it 24/7, but at that time, so I'd only wear it when I was up and about. And actually it felt really good because you feel like you just can't hold your belly in. I know it sounds kind of weird until you experience it, but it just kind of does feel like it flops out. It's a more energetic feeling as opposed to, I'm sure, like an actual flopping out. And so that the wrap actually just felt like it kind of held everything together. And I felt it almost allowed my muscles to not have to work so hard. It was assisting it, kind of like you would say, like a cast would, allowing that bone to get back to its right place. I would personally wear it when I was starting to stand up more, going for like a light walk, and then take it off when I tended to lie down and stuff.
Yeah,
like
I was
that.
going to say the next question probably to address is when to wear it and how long to wear it. So the answer for that is really going to be there is no right or wrong answer, just making sure you're working intuitively with your body.
Yes. Yeah. Really listen to your body. And if you're concerned and you're not, and some people just aren't intuitive into their body, like it's a lot harder to get there, then maybe it would be ideal to seek out a belly binding. I'm
Or
calling them
ask us.
practitioners, or ask
Ask
us.
us. We don't mind.
And you can't go wrong. Like if you're doing it for a few hours standing up and then taking it off while you're laying down and relaxing, it's not going to probably hurt.
Exactly. 2 to 3 hours a day is a great place to start.
Exactly. And it's interesting too, because I did a video on how to do it. I used my mom as the person.
You still have it? Can we share it?
I do. It's I'll look for it. I'll have to like
Jen when she's 16 years old.
No, but I was like, yeah. Not in my like most beautiful state, but that's okay. I'll try to find it. Keeping it real. That's like our phrase, right? Keeping it real. But even she said it feels really good. And we're talking about someone that hasn't had a baby, and she's like, it felt really good. And again, it helps because it's going to improve the digestion. It keeps that area warm. And so there are a lot of benefits even outside of postpartum. I would say one of the complaints I get the most is that it's very warm. And I don't think it's necessarily like a complaint, but I do understand what they're saying, because you imagine you're wrapping this fabric multiple times around the core of your body. And then I don't know about you, but sometimes when I was breastfeeding, I'd get really hot, especially in the beginning, because my body's like trying to regulate with hormones and stuff like that. That was the only complaint I've really heard about belly binding. I don't know if you felt too warm. You're also in the city, and depends on when you have babies. So
depends on where you're located and how warm it is, I guess. So question for you too. When you are doing not just the regular cloth wrapped around and you're doing the binding part, so the knots kind of thing where you're, twisting it a little bit more, I would do that on top of like a layer of clothing. Like, so I had like a thin tank top and I would do it on top. Do you know if there's any benefit or suggestion on whether you should do this on top or do it on bare skin?
So when I learned, so there is some like twisting, but not knotting. The thing that we learned about that is the location of where you're doing the twist and it sounds similar, is the knots, because you want to do it on the side so that it's not aggravating where you're at. I think yours, where do they traditionally land it? It's on the side, right?
The twist, it was in the front, I think, even
in the front.
Yeah, which makes sense because you're not really lying on your belly. So if you wanted to like sit back or lie down, it would just, all the twists would it would be up the front, but it looked really beautiful, like kind of coming up. So
really pretty. Yeah. That's the main thing. I mean, I guess if it irritates your skin, I don't see why you couldn't just put it on your skin. Is there a reason why you did the
I think it was just to create, I don't know, to create some other barrier, maybe also to make it snug, but not too snug. So like if I was up and moving around, a little bit more fluid, it felt like, versus if it was on my skin. That was another thing
Yes.
for washing.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that. I was like, exactly. If you're sweating, me, I wasn't like working out at the time. So it was very postpartum. So the sweat was just a very light sweat. But yeah, I could see putting a t-shirt on. And that is one of the skills of belly binding, is learning that correct tightness and looseness and really trying to find that nice balance. And as you get further postpartum, in the beginning, it has to be, I don't want to say super loose, because you want to feel like it's actually doing something. But in the closer you are postpartum, day one, within 24 hours, you're doing a lot looser binding than you are, say, on like 3 weeks. You want to kind of match how your body's feeling in that. And it is a skill. I've had to do a few bindings where I've had to actually take it off, redo it 2 or 3 times just to get the right amount of tightness and looseness, because it's constantly adding, right?
Yeah, and that makes sense too. If you think of even just what is soft is probably going to feel more snug at the first, because it's just that your body again has gone from being this dramatic change really within just a couple of days. And so a loose bind will feel snugger. And then as your body slowly is getting back into its place, and
Exactly.
tighter, because your body is getting more used to that direction of things going versus pushing out. And then your body's like getting used to like going back in. So
yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting too, because when I was doing a video, like you said, you need someone to do it. So I'd send videos to the partner so the partner could do it on mama. And it is interesting doing it on my mom, because she isn't postpartum, and I actually hadn't practiced it on somebody that wasn't postpartum. And it's a totally different feel. So
the
it's
way
actually
your body responds.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then therein lies again that whole sense of connection that you're building with somebody that's just on this different level than we usually connect with somebody. And it's a really, really sweet thing.
And then so also with belly binding, we'll usually do a little massage. There's always some sacral holding, almost like I would say craniosacral. We're not doing the cranial aspect of it, but there is holding where you hold the sacrum and then you kind of hold the pelvis above, and you're not doing anything, but it has minor shifts. And so that's also supposed to help bring the body back to a pre-pregnancy state or post-pregnancy state after baby's gone. And then so the massage is softer, but kind of deep. And that's just to make sure there's, to get the digestion going, because it's often slowed, and to make sure that all the organs are having the space to get back to where they need to kind of go.
If you are looking for a practitioner, oftentimes the types of practitioners that you'll find, like doulas, I believe is like how you pronounce it.
Cool. Like Ayurvedic?
Ayurvedic doula. Yeah.
Ayurvedic. No, that's awesome.
A lot of them focus on that first 40 days. So like some of them will come to your house every day and do the massage and do the belly binding. And so there oftentimes is an Ayurvedic doula that is usually a belly binding practitioner. And just to expand on that, yes, the belly binding is amazing, but treat yourself to a whole day. If you're going to have an Ayurvedic doula come, take advantage of getting the massage, take advantage of doing any other practices that they might do for you. And once they show you or they do the belly binding for you, maybe then you try to take it from there, or your partner watches and they teach your partner and they can do it for you in the future. Really want to pamper yourself, you could do the 40-day pampering package.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a real treat yourself kind of package. But I also have a friend who just had Ayurvedic doula come for just 1 day after postpartum, and she said it was amazing. You just feel like you're getting like a VIP day, basically, like a postpartum VIP days. There's a lot of other components that kind of can go in with the package of just belly binding. And so if you are going to look into practitioners, I highly encourage you to expand out and just get some of these other treatments that are complementary.
And I know Chinese medicine too does it. And that's where I actually first did it before I even learned how to do belly binding, from actual like person that's done it before culturally. So yeah.
Chinese medicine, they do belly binding too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do they do it different? Do they do just the wraparound?
They do wraparound. There is twisting because you need tightness, but it's more like twisting the fabric just less times than the version that you do. So it's different. And I'm almost positive the version that you did, you have to wait a little bit longer postpartum, where the Chinese version and this more Aztec version I learned, you can do it almost immediately postpartum.
We can
Yeah.
put links to some of these different versions so you can kind of research deeper. I know with Chinese medicine too, they recommend the heat. Like, so you do the
Yes.
binding and then you put almost like a hot water bottle, or like I've seen actually like a pot.
Yeah, because
like
it's
water.
thick. Yeah, yeah. And I sometimes too, depending, I'll warm the womb with moxa and stuff like that. Because a lot of moms, especially immediate postpartum, their hormone levels are still, they're all over the place. They're usually generally warm enough. So just the fabric alone will keep that area really warm. And immediate postpartum, I'm saying within 1 to 3 days. And you can, another really common question is, can I get it after a C-section? And yes, you can. You just have to, as far as like massaging, yeah, you have to be gentle. And as far as massaging, you don't want to massage over the scar, put any oils on or anything like that. Yeah. And then making sure that the fabric, the way it lays, is not going to rub or irritate the scarring.
Yeah. I find a lot of people prefer to wait a couple weeks after a C-section, or you'll be given the elastic
belly
belt.
band.
Belly band. Yeah. Belly belt. And that they feel just more comfortable with that because it's something that you can easily just like pull and pull off.
Because it is a little time consuming.
It is a little time consuming.
Yeah.
And those belly belts are great. And also there is a difference, I'm going to say, between those, because I had both the belly belt and I did the binding, and I felt the binding just held better. And it was just more of it's just a little bit of a nice, firmer, snugger fit. Yeah. I would always recommend, if you're going to start with a belly belt, eventually, especially if you're at the C-section, as healing progresses, then move into doing binding at least once a week if you feel called to it. And if you're doing binding, I did both. I did the belly belt and the binding when I didn't have the time or I didn't want to do the binding, to definitely tell the difference between the two. Yeah. And I always appreciated having the binding a couple times a week. It just definitely helps.
One thing I noticed about the binding versus the belt is the binding really covers more area. You're covering almost up to
below your breasts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes from your pelvis down to like your bone up to your breast.
And the belt just doesn't get up that high. And I feel, and then also like you're saying, it is softer. And when you're constantly kind of like tying it, you have more control over that pressure in a very universal way, as opposed to the belt, which at certain areas it's going to feel looser because it's just not tied in it like the way that you are saying. I loved it. I hope people try it. Even if you're not pregnant, I think you should do it.
Yeah. So give it a shot. And if you do try it and you want to take a picture and send it to us, you can reach out to us, send it to us, let us know what you think. I always love pictures. So send your pictures or share your Instagram post or whatever it is. And we'd love to see it. Happy belly binding.
Hey there, amazing listeners. We just want to say a huge thank you for tuning into our convo on the Just This podcast today. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners, and your continued support means the world to us.
If you enjoyed this episode and found value in it, we would be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it too. Your reviews and shares not only motivate us, but they also help others discover our show.
We're also all about keeping the conversation going and hanging out with our incredible community. Head over to justthis.site, that's JUSTTHIS.SITE, where you'll find additional resources, ways to connect with us, and join the conversation, plus some more goodies.
Thank you again for being a part of the Just This community. We'll be back soon. Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and embrace the wonder as you navigate this extraordinary adventure.